Recently, I saw this video where this girl was talking about how, even though she has 100,000 subscribers and a lot of viewers, she feels just as alone as before. As a matter of fact, she said, she felt even more alone. I think there's a big problem with today's YouTube culture in that because people don't have an attention span anymore, they don't really value content anymore. It doesn't really matter what you make. 99% of the time, it's gonna be in one ear, out in the other ear. Right? Goes in, goes out. Doesn't matter how much artistic consideration you put in it, it's not going to be valued. And I can tell this from personal experience that when I look at a video, I don't appreciate the amount of work that must have gone into it. I just sort of skip and I'm not even impressed. I'm not impressed by the editing, not impressed by the music choices, not impressed by just putting together a script and reading it, performing it. It's all very difficult stuff. But I can tell I don't really appreciate it because YouTube is so saturated with content that because we're hooked up to the machine all day and all night, like they were in Wall-E, the movie Wall-E, where these fat people were just consuming content all day. We no longer really appreciate anything. We don't have the attention span, and we simply have too much content. There's a kind of content surplus where there's more supply than there's demand. There's simply too much supply for too little demand. A lot of people make videos nowadays, but there's simply not enough time in the day to consume them. The quality, even if the quality is good, even if what the person has to say is important, it's just not spectacular enough to hold our attention, because that's what we require. We require nothing short of a spectacle. If we're not given the spectacle that will blow our hair out, we're not interested in listening. So it's turned out that most of the content on YouTube has become totally pointless because people don't consume it, or even if they do consume it, they consume it in a sloppy way that doesn't really amount to real consumption. It's like the difference between learning and understanding. In school, when I was still in school, they would always tell us, learn, learn, learn. It's all about learning. But they never questioned what learning really meant. To them, rote learning, just consuming the information and then spilling it back on a test, was somehow enough to qualify as learning, even though it really wasn't learning because we haven't learned anything. It was something that didn't mean anything to us. So the problem was not with the content but the form, the way it was being taught, not the material itself. It's not that, people sometimes say, why are we learning all this useless stuff? The, the, the reason why we say that is not because it's useless, but because it's presented to us as if it was useless. Because we can't make sense out of it, because we can't make head or tail out of it. Because it doesn't mean anything to us. They haven't given us a context, a reason for why we should care about what we learn. They just rip it out and kind of present it to us in the most formal, uninteresting way possible, so that it becomes rote learning. And so my problem with school, and our problem with school, is not the content, the material that's being taught, but the way that it's being taught. And I've made this connection because there's something similar, I guess, in YouTube, because there's a difference between watching and seeing. Like this girl in the YouTube video was talking about how she was watched, but she was not seen. Right? Something like that. She used that kind of difference of being seen and being watched. Or that's a difference that I recognize. That she was kind of talking about that even though people see you, you feel just as lonely as before, just as alone as before. And that's because you're a spectacle. Yeah, I think, I don't know if I've seen this in a movie or I've dreamt it, but it reminded me of this scene, which was either in a movie or in a dream, where I was in a room, in a kind of glass room, and people could see me. I think it was a movie, actually. Somehow some guy was in a glass room and everybody could see him. He was kind of an attraction, like a kind of zoo attraction. And so that's what it feels like there. You might be seen, but you're not really being listened to. That's what she said. Nobody really listens. They might, or they might listen, but they don't hear what she has to say. She has communicated nothing. That's how she feels, and she's probably largely correct, because if she disappeared tomorrow off of YouTube, I wonder how quickly she would be forgotten. You can go to channels with a lot of subscribers that are forgotten. People don't really care. So the point is that there's a difference between being seen and being watched, just as there's a difference between learning and understanding. Today, we are learning, but we're not understanding. We are watching, but we're not seeing. We are listening, but we're not hearing. Right? So, if you ask people on her channel, what is your takeaway from this channel? Can you actually talk about what she, the value of what she was trying to say, the content of the substance of what she was trying to say? Can you repeat it? Did you bring anything at all home with you? And the answer is probably no. They just clicked because they saw a pretty face. They stayed because they saw a pretty face, or somebody that sounded kind of pleasant, or maybe said something they agreed with, but it was not listened to, it was not integrated. It didn't change anything. That's how I feel, and that's how many people feel, is that it's just a giant spectacle and nothing is really being done. But I'm not gonna keep talking because you cannot get any views if the video is too long, so I just see if this does anything. Yeah, that's it.